And one.
Hello and welcome to the Blue Dragon Qigong Academy. And today is your day to ask questions about anything health related. Today our topic is on biohacking. So the backstory on biohacking is a couple of years ago, before COVID started, I got invited to attend a biohacking conference. And at that point, I was only familiar with the word, but I didn't know what biohacking was. So I went online, I look up biohacking, and what's the definition of biohacking? To optimize health by measuring and altering various biomarkers and behaviors. So I'm like, well, that sounds cool. So according to Bulletproof Blog, the #1 biohack is meditation. So I teach meditation since 1980. I've been teaching meditation. And there's literally thousands of people online teaching meditation. So when people come to me and they want my assistance, and then I tell them about my meditation, they say, oh, well, I'm already taking a meditation class online. I'm like, that's great. What's the URL? And then I look it up. So the first thing I ask is about breathing. The second thing I ask is about posture. And the third thing I ask is about visualization. So breathing, posture, and visualization. So if there's any meditation course that doesn't start with breathing, posture, and visualization, not going to work very well. So the #1 biohack being meditation, well, I do meditation. #2 biohack is detoxification and dietary changes. Well, since 1983, I've been teaching juice feasting and raw food diet. So we do 14 days juice, 7 days raw. That adds up to 21 days to wellness, which I've been teaching consistent since 1983. The #3 hack is called intermittent fasting. Now, a lot of people have jumped on the intermittent fasting, but I've been teaching that since 2011. #4 biohack is gratitude and forgiveness. Well, I took a course back in 1982 called EST, or Erhard Seminars Training. And from that course, I was able to develop my own course, which is called CHIP plus app equals OS. So what's your CHIP? Your childhood programming. What's your app? Your attitude, your perspective, and your perception. So that those two together equals your operating system. So are you operating out of fear? Are you operating out of lack? Are you operating out of anger? Are you operating out of worry? What's your operating system? What makes you make choices? What's your intention? Well, unless your operating system is unconditional love or universal love, your operating system is not serving humanity. So I was fortunate enough to meet the Dalai Lama in 1983. I was at the UN. I was attending a Tai Chi class at the UN. And I got on the wrong elevator, and there's the Dalai Lama. And I was flustered. I was like, I didn't know what to say. So he said, I see you have questions. I said, I have a ton of questions, but I don't know what to ask. And he said, would you like to change 3 lifetimes of karma in 30 days? And I was like, yes. So I started to get out my notebook. And he said, be good, be kind, become passionate. And I heard become passionate instead of be compassionate. And that's a whole long story that I won't get into here. But from that, the chip plus the app equals your operating system. And I'm here to help you transform your operating system. And what we do is a biohack. Number 5 is brain retraining. So that kind of sort of fits in together. Now, I was fascinated by the Egyptian eye, the all-seeing eye, which you can see right here. My hand is covering it. The other one. Okay. That's the all-seeing eye. And the Egyptians had it made out of gold, put on a pedestal, and they carried it on a staff. And I'm like, why are they worshiping the eye? So I literally had to do a lot of research to find out that the snake in the front is Wajet, which is the pituitary. The vulture in the back is the pineal. The eyebrow represents thought. The eyeball represents vision. In front of the eye represents smelling, and back of the eye represents the ear. The little curly Q on the back represents taste, and the pole that supports the eye is the brainstem, which represents touch. So I came to find out that the eye represented the limbic system and exactly how the brain works. So I started teaching how to biohack your limbic system. And I started doing that in 2015. Now, sleep cycle training is biohack number 6. And I've been teaching Tibetan dream programming also since 2015 with journaling, affirmations, and meditation. In fact, I teach a course called Sleepitation because the Tibetans were so busy, they didn't have time to meditate because life was a struggle, life was hard. So they learned how to meditate while they were falling asleep. And so I took all that information, I compiled a list of 12 affirmations, and I teach this Sleepitation course. It's a 10-day course on Zoom every night from 9 to 10. Then the 7th thing that's on the list of biohacks is smart nutrients, phosphatidylcholine and phosphatidylserine, which they call nootropics. And so they use these substances, which you can buy over the counter at any health food store, but you have to know the dosage because everything is dose specific. And if you don't know exactly what's going on, then you don't know how to do it. So I teach Health Smart for kids and parents and brain retraining for kids that have ADD and adults that have ADHD, okay? The number 8 biohack is sexual rejuvenation to relieve stress. Well, since 1985, I've been teaching Taoist sexual secrets for sexual rejuvenation and sexual stamina. And I'm gonna do a whole course on sexual healing at another time. So those are the top 8 things in biohacking according to the Biohacking website, and I do all 8 of them. So I called Kristen back and I said, thank you for inviting me to attend, but I wanna be a speaker. And she said, really, what are you gonna speak about? And I said, the brain retraining with the limbic system. And she's like, okay, you're on the program. You got 20 minutes. So I went to the conference. I went 40 minutes. So when I came off stage to a standing ovation, I said, how did I do? She said, you were great, but you went 20 minutes over. I was like, oh my God, why didn't you let me know? She said, everybody loved it. So we went with it. So I can teach you that in a 3-hour course, the brain retraining, or I can teach you in a whole weekend because it's a lot to process. Now, out of all the things I said, you have a question. How long is it gonna take me to biohack myself? How much time do I have to invest? Because time is the most precious commodity we have. Well, obviously, meditation being number one, that's something you're going to have to invest in. And that's going to take several weeks to several months to master. Now, I teach 8 different types of meditation. So you're going to learn all 8 over 8 weeks. And then you get to pick and decide the one that's right for you. Number 2, the limbic biohacking. I think that's the second most important thing, because then you allow yourself to learn how to retrain your brain. Number 3 is the parasympathetic nerve biohacking. So we have a central nervous system, we have a peripheral nervous system, and then we have a sympathetic and a parasympathetic nervous system. Now, the sympathetic is the accelerator. Somebody sideswipes you in a parking lot. You get mad, you jump out of your car, you want to punch the window of the other car, and you just completely wild out. But what if you got sideswiped and you took a breath and you relaxed and you thought about, what am I going to do first? What am I going to do second? Am I going to call the insurance company? Am I going to call the police? And am I going to write down his license number? And then all of a sudden, you're calm and collected. Nobody died. That's the parasympathetic nervous system. Now, if you went to medical school, they will tell you there's no difference between the sympathetic and the parasympathetic. It just happens. But the ancients, the rishis, the sages, the ones who live in caves, they will all tell you that you can control your reaction to anything if you breathe and meditate. So biohacking your parasympathetic nervous system involves learning Qigong, which is the thing that I do every single day. Number 4, sleep dream biohacking. You go to sleep every night. Why don't you know how to program your dreams? Einstein figured out his theories while he was sleeping. Henry Ford figured out how to build his car factory while he was sleeping. Edison figured out how to test the filament of his light bulb while he was sleeping. So if I can teach you a sleep ritual and I can teach you how to slow your brain down, then you can program your dreams and you can get better results for your life. Now, the 5th and the most important thing that I think of is the immune system biohack. So back when the quarantine started, everybody was a little nutsy, and we were all trying to figure out how can we build our immune systems to reduce the possibility of us getting infected by an airborne virus. So immediately I thought of 2 Qigong exercises that were the best way to do that. But then they were a little complicated for beginners. So then I had to throw some other Qigong exercises in there to get them started off. And then I realized that people are easily bored, they have short attention spans, they have no patience, and they hate waiting. So then I turned it into a dance. So I made the Qigong fun. So those are the 5 things that, 5 biohacks that are easily worth $100 each. And if you are interested in any of these biohacks, depending upon your response, your phone calls, your DMs, I'll put together a course and it won't cost $500. Okay? Now, the second question you have, the first question was, how long is it going to take to learn? And then the second question is, how long does it take to perform it? If I'm going to do this biohack every day, how long is it going to take? Well, there's something that I'm going to teach you called Accu Tapping. And that's where we use 3 fingers to tap a sequence of points. 3 fingers to tap a sequence of points. And so whether it's emotional stress, whether it's physical stress, whether it's physical pain, musculoskeletal, neuroendocrine, digestive, reproductive, I have a sequence that will help you relieve the pain, the anxiety, the fear, the worry, the abandonment, the rejection, the betrayal. You should have a musical interlude for when the train comes by. Okay. So 50% of men over 50 have a prostate issue. Half of those men will develop prostate cancer. And the other half of those men will learn how to suppress the issues of the prostate. Now, how do you suppress the prostate issues? Now, every time you go to the bathroom, you use your anal sphincter. About 1 inch up the anal sphincter is the actual prostate gland. Now, if you open and close your anal sphincter 10 times, that muscle will actually push on your prostate. Now, what if you're chronically constipated and you go to the bathroom every 2 days, every 3 days, every 5 days? I've had some patients walk in and they have a bowel movement every 10 days. Well, that prostate needs to be stimulated on a regular basis. So if you're not eating high fiber foods and you're not hydrating, then you're not getting the bowel movement that's going to press against the prostate. So what I do is I teach you how to do exercises with your anal sphincter that will benefit your prostate. And by the same token, it also helps women with their uterine issues. So whether it's prostate or uterine, opening and closing the anal sphincter. Now, you cannot learn how to do that from this video. That's a whole separate video on how to utilize all of the sphincters, whether it's the anal sphincter, whether it's the sigmoid colon, whether it's the ileocecal valve, whether it's the pyloric valve. It doesn't matter. I'm going to teach you how to create the energy moving through those sphincter muscles. Now, there's acupressure on your ears. And this is what we call the ear squeeze. So the lobe of the ear represents the face. There's a little nipple at the top of the lobe, which represents the brain point. So if we squeeze the ears, as we bend our knees up and down, we can literally flood the brain with blood. And we first discovered this treating traumatic brain injuries 35 years ago. Then about 25 years ago, we started using it for autistic children. Now, we just use it for anyone who has a lack of blood flow to the brain, okay? The next one is called Jing Dragon Breath. Now, Jing is the part of the energy that combines the digestive and the reproductive. And when those two work together, that produces hormones. Then we have the chi field, which is the circulatory and the respiratory. And then we have the musculoskeletal and the neuroendocrine. So those 3 elixir fields are how the body integrates energy and how Western medicine, 6 systems are thereby known to traditional Chinese medicine and medical Qigong. Okay? So insomnia is another biohack. And we have 50% of the American population either has insomnia or trouble sleeping. So we have the sleep meditation that I talked about earlier. And that sleep meditation is what relaxes the heart, relaxes the lungs, slows down the brain, and actually creates a conduit for positive energy to flow from turning the waist to all the muscles. That to me is fascinating. It's very calming and relaxing when I do it, okay? Now the last biohack, and all of these biohacks take 8 minutes or less. So the last one I'm going to talk about today is swing arms. Now, swing arms is when you do this, chin up, chin down, chin up, chin down. And we do that 108 times, which is just about 3.5 minutes. So 3.5 minutes of swinging your arms increases blood flow through the brain, particularly cerebrospinal fluid. It takes stress out of the trapezius muscle, and it opens up the ribs so you can expand the rib cage to get more air, to get more oxygen, to purify the blood. So I dropped a lot of information on you, and now we're going to open up for questions. If anyone has a question about biohacking in general or something in particular, now's the time to ask. So yeah, I know I overwhelmed you with a lot of information.
That was amazing, Dr. Love. Thank you for sharing all those amazing tips on biohacking. If you're listening or watching the podcast live, please make sure you comment in the chat question. This is the Ask Dr. Love podcast. So whether on YouTube, Facebook, or Instagram, comment your question in the chat. Reading from actual Instagram, somebody says, I've been vegan over 1 year and I'm planning on going plant-based no longer than May. I definitely need exercises. I'm quadriplegic.
Quadriplegic.
Quadriplegic. So.
Okay, so quadriplegic means the 4 limbs are actively or are inactive. So I've treated several quadriplegics. So what we do is you lean. So first of all, you have to put a set of pulleys in the ceiling above your bed, and your ceiling may be too high, so you might have to lower something. And then you grab onto this, and then you have a set of pulleys that takes you forward and back. And I've actually helped build this for my other quadriplegics. Now, the other thing is to turn the shoulders perpendicular to the waist. This actually feels good, believe it or not. And then the other thing is to go up and down, up and down. And you can do this with half-pound weights, 1-pound weights, and work your way up, okay? So I crunch, and I straighten my spine, and I come down. So I'm expanding the spine, contracting the spine. So Ed and I did a whole series called Chair Qigong, and that is available for download or purchase, or I don't know all the terminology, but Ed knows, and all that is available whenever you're ready. Chair Qigong for people who are quadriplegics.
Okay, so Buck Smalls, You heard it from Dr. Love himself. I know you asked for some exercises, some breathing exercises. Go to Blue Dragon Qigong.org if you're listening and you'd like to tap into the Chair Qigong course, and also join the Blue Dragon Qigong Academy so you can do Qigong with Dr. Love. You will learn the breathing exercises as well as all of the Qigong. Now, coming up next, we have a question from YouTube from the one and only Kev Brown. It says, what does wiggling the toes do? Is that a biohack?
Yes, it is, as a matter of fact. So, unfortunately, Americans wear shoes and socks all day long. And ladies wear hose and high heels all day long. Now, since the quarantine, maybe not so much, but corporate America, you got to wear high heels and stockings, and guys have to wear shoes and socks. And so imagine that you wore gloves all day long. And you could, imagine that the keys on the keyboard were spaced further apart, so you could still use the keyboard, but you're still wearing gloves. After a day or so, you're like, can I take these off? It would be quite annoying. But you've trained your feet to accept wearing shoes and socks. Well, they've called me the barefoot doctor because when I got to Florida, I stopped wearing shoes and socks and went barefoot. So there are 6 meridians that go to the feet. So there's 3 that start on the feet, and there's 3 that end on the feet. So that's a total of 6 meridians. Now the little toe goes to the bladder meridian, the 4th toe to the gallbladder meridian. There's nothing to the 3rd toe. The 2nd toe is the stomach meridian, and the big toe is the liver and the spleen meridian. So we've got all these meridians that go to the toes. So wiggling your toes increases blood flow, which they call the capillary reflex test. So wiggling your toes increases blood flow to the toes. Okay. Now to that, we want to add the ankle rotation, and then we want to arch and point. We want to point and arch the foot, and point and arch the foot, and all that increases the blood flow. Now, if you had high blood sugar, if you were what we call pre-diabetic, diabetes restricts blood flow to the extremities, which would be the hands, the feet, and the head. So by wiggling your toes and going up and down on your toes prevents diabetes. So that's a really, really good thing to do.
And how do you test to see if your blood flow is inadequate, the calorie it's not flowing? How do you check to see that?
Okay, so this is your big toe. You put your thumbnail in your big toe, you press in until it turns white, and then you let it go. If the blood doesn't come back into the toe, in other words, if the big toe doesn't turn pink in 1 second, then there's a restriction of blood flow. And then you're going to need acupuncture or some other physical therapy to increase blood flow.
What is the best way to deal with psoriasis? Psoriasis.
Psoriasis.
What
Okay.
is the best way to deal with psoriasis and eczema?
Okay. So psoriasis and eczema are both an inflammation. They're an inflammatory response to emotions. Now, rarely it comes from food. So if you eat a lot of hot, spicy, greasy food, you could get psoriasis. However, it's more than likely an emotional stress that causes psoriasis. So the best thing to do is to go stand in barefoot. Now, we're on concrete, but we recommend that people do go to the ocean, and they do learn how to balance everything out. So that's how we do that.
All right. Thank you, Brother Shabazz, for that question. Next question is from Jacqueline Allen. Are there any exercises that can heal for veins, synovitis?
Synovitis?
Synovitis? Mummy's thumb, wrist. Put in parentheses. Are there any exercises that can heal deep curved veins, synovitis, mummy's thumb?
Okay, this is it right here. This is the exercise right here. So we do this 16 times, and then we do this 16 times. And that's how you treat that.
And if you want to learn more of that, those exercises specifically, get the explanation, get the guidance, and be able to access them on your own, go to BlueDragonQigongAcademy.com, and you'll be able to get that personalized assistance from Dr. Love himself. So make sure you're doing that so that way you can tap in. We have a question coming from Facebook from Diane Jones. Shout out to you, Diane. I am type 2, having neuropathy symptoms in my toes due to chemo treatments. Also, thin hair on the top of my head since my hair started growing back. What can I do to increase blood flow to hair follicles?
Okay, so that would be a vigorous scalp massage. That would be doing a shampoo, a mixture of Hoshuru with olive oil and cayenne pepper. But that formula is a secret formula, which means you'd have to have a private consultation with me because everything is dose specific. And we got to make sure exactly the round amount of oil and cayenne pepper to our shampoo.
If you don't want to ask Dr. Loves your questions live and would like for it to be answered to you personally, be sure to go to dr.love.com and book a free 15-minute consult. And from there, you can actually decide if you want to follow up and get the solution that you need. So telemedicine is available. Go to dr.love.com. Are not able to ask the question live on the broadcast. Now, if you're watching live or listening to this podcast, you can send in your questions to Qi at dr.love.com. Just email your questions to Qi at dr.love.com. But if you're watching live, we are still accepting questions. So make sure you comment below your question on biohacking. In the meantime, Dr. Love, do you have anything you want to share with the people?
Well, our ignorance is killing us. There is a concerted effort against the air, the water, the soil, the food. When you go to a doctor for a checkup, they test your blood pressure. Do they test it with you lying down or do they test it with you sitting up? Do they test just one elbow or do they test the wrists and the ankles? Do they determine where the blood flow blockage is coming from? Do they attempt to work against the blood flow blockage or do they attempt just to get you off Michigan for 4 weeks? So these are questions that only you can answer. You have to decide what's in your best interest. And for my money, I know what I'm capable of doing.
And we have another question coming straight from Instagram. And the question is, what helps kidney yang deficiency? Dr. Love,
Yes.
What helps kidney yang deficiency?
Kidney yang deficiency is a hormonal deficiency. So how can we help the hormones? So what we need is DHEA. We need something called PQQ. We need something called quercetin. And we need something called CoQ10. All of those things increase blood flow. Now, specifically for the hormones, there's something called Rehmannia 8. It is a combination of kidney yin and kidney yang deficiency. And it comes in both a liquid and it also comes in pills. So people ask me which one is better, the liquid or the pills? And I say, whichever one you're going to take every day. So the Chinese name is Sichuan Dabochan. And that's kind of a hard name. So if you could order it online, I'm sure you would be able to order online, but you can't. So you have to go through a doctor-only herbal website. So if you think you have diminished hormones as a man, or even as a woman, and you want to use Chinese herbs to build up your kidney yang, then DM me. We have online consultations, and I'll be able to help you pinpoint what the issue is and the right herbal formula.
If you aren't able to ask Dr. Love your questions live, you can ask Dr. Love question one-on-one. Make sure you go to dr.love.com and you'll be able to ask Dr. Love any questions you have. But we have another question from Instagram, and let's get it. What helps arthritis?
That's a great question. So arthritis is basically rust in your joints. Rust is oxidation. Oxidation is oxygen escaping from the tissues. Oxygen is the catalyst for tissue repair. So arthritis is a lack of oxygenation. So how do we oxygenate the blood without taking an oxygen tank? Well, number one is going to be breathing exercises. Number two is going to be called the breath of fire, where we strengthen the diaphragm muscle that pushes air out of the lungs. Number three is going to be skating, biking, swimming, jumping, dancing. Anything that we're moving the body is going to increase blood and oxygen flow. And all of those things prevent arthritis. Now, if you already have arthritis, then you need something that's going like a little squeeze ball, squeeze toy. I have a habit of collecting plastic brains, and I have 6 of these brains, and you can squeeze these things, and the squeezing increases blood flow to the brain.
Thank you all for watching and listening to Ask Dr. Love podcast. This is a podcast. So if you're watching live, you can subscribe on all your podcast platforms. You can tell Siri or Google or Alexa to play Ask Dr. Love podcast, or you can go to anchor.fm/Ask Dr. Love. Make sure you ask your questions in the comment. If you have a question for Dr. Love, we're talking about biohacking. So you have any questions about biohacking, comment it below, or forever hold your question until next week. All right. Any more questions? Let's give them a few minutes, but go ahead, Doc.
Well, I think we should wrap it up here. I've got a lot more information about biohacking, but it's too much to absorb in one sitting. That's why I give it to you in little pieces. So I appreciate your off-topic questions as well as your on-topic questions. If you have a question you want to ask next week, you can just drop it in the chat. We'll pick it up and we'll address those. But the next 18 podcasts, I already have the topics lined up. Some will be actual health challenges, and others will be various therapies that we utilize. So it will be always interesting, and Dr. Love always will dial it in for you. Thank you to my wonderful co-host and producer and director.
Holistic motivator.
Thank you.
Thank you all for tuning into the Ask Dr. Love podcast. Make sure you subscribe to this podcast, share it to your friends. That way they know they know this information to transform their life and prevent them from getting sick. What is the only cure, Dr. Love?
Prevention is the only cure.
And your health
is in your hands. Until next week, for the Blue Dragon Qigong Academy. Blue Dragon Qigong.